Hello everybody, and thank you for joining our financial technology webinar today. So my name is Lucy Welch. I'm a student inquiries advisor. So we may have spoken on the phone or via email before. So as an attendee, your mics and videos have been disabled. So you'll just need to use the chat function to interact. And so whilst we do welcome to get most of the presentation, you wait till the end and ask your questions via the Q&A section on the right-hand side of your screen. However, we will also be monitoring the chat section as well. So just to give you a bit more information about the Q&A section, as I said, it's on the right-hand side of your screen. You can either submit a question, or alternatively, if you think someone else has asked a question that you think is particularly relevant to their question, and that will go to the top of the queue to be answered by Dr. Swingler. And so we will also be sending a recording out at the end in a few days' time. So do keep an eye on your emails for that. And we'd also like to point out the handout in the handout section, also on the right-hand side of your screen. So if you do have any questions about scholarships or funding, you can find some links and some more information there. So with that being said, I'll hand over to Dr. Swingler.
Good. Right, okay, think on. Sorry about that, I think my microphone was turned off there for a moment. I'll start again. Hello everybody, and welcome to this seminar, this webinar on the MSc Financial Technology at the University of Stirling. My name is Dr. Kevin Swingler. I'm the Programme Director for FinTech, and I'll be talking to you today for just maybe a quarter of an hour or so about life in Stirling in general, and then some specific details about the FinTech course that we run here. And then you'll have some opportunity to ask questions at the end. So we're located in Stirling, that's in Scotland. It's quite a nice location. We're right in the middle of the country. We're about an hour from both the two large cities of Glasgow and Edinburgh. So there's quite a lot. You can get out to those big cities quite easily. But Stirling itself is quite a small, well, you probably wouldn't recognise it as a city. Officially it is, but it's quite a small, quite pleasant town. Now, the University of Stirling isn't quite in Stirling itself. It's a campus university. It's a very beautiful campus. And we're a mile or so out of the city of Stirling in our own grounds. I'll show you some pictures of those in a minute. We have about 1,400 students, and 3,800 or so of those are postgrads. So that's what we're talking about today. There's about 1,500 staff, and it's a very international university. This year there's around 120 nationalities represented on campus, so there's good chance that you would meet other people from the country that you're coming from, and about 20% of all of our students are from overseas, although that figure's higher for the postgraduate courses. We do very well in a lot of the student satisfaction surveys. You can see some of the things here. Unsurprisingly, you'll see some pictures in a minute. We're first in Scotland for our lovely campus, but we're also first in Scotland for more important things, perhaps things like good teachers, the quality of the lectures, and we're also first in Scotland and second in all of the UK for our sports facilities. And that's because Stirling is Scotland's university for sport. So we have an Olympic swimming pool here, we have the National Tennis Centre here, and you may well find that you're going for a swim, and a couple of the other lanes are closed off because the National Olympic swimming team are training there. So the sports facilities here are really very good. So as promised, here's a few pictures of the campus. Looking very green as it is today as I look out of my window. So it's a very pleasant place to live. It's quite relaxing, all of the nice scenery. It's a nice place to live and work. But if you want something a little bit more exciting, as I said, it's a couple of miles from the city of Stirling, and then only an hour from the much larger cities of Glasgow and Edinburgh. It's quite a nice place to live, Stirling. As I said, it's a rather small place, but the city's quite nice. It's got everything that you would expect. It's a real tourist town in the summer because it has an ancient castle and it has lots of other nice tourist attractions. And it's also at the gateway to the more wild parts of Scotland. The Highlands, the Lochs and the mountains and so on are only a short drive north of here. So you really get the feeling on a summer's day as you walk through Stirling that you're somewhere on holiday, which is really quite nice, even if you live here. Another thing about Stirling, particularly compared, let's say, to Glasgow or Edinburgh, is that it's cheaper to live here. I've got some living costs up on the screen now. I won't bore you by reading them out, but you can have a quick look there and get an idea of the amount of money that you might expect it to cost to live in Stirling for the year of your study. Okay, so that's Stirling itself. Now, the university, as I mentioned, a little bit outside of the city on a campus of our own, with some very nice facilities. I've mentioned the sporting facilities. There's also a state-of-the-art library that's built quite recently. And you can have a look on the website there for more details about the campus and the facilities that we have here. Okay, so that's quite a quick introduction to Stirling and the university, but I'm sure you're a little bit more interested to find out about FinTech and what we're doing here around FinTech at Stirling. So FinTech is a new program for us. It starts this year. We don't have any students on it yet. And we put it together in response to a really large and rapidly growing requirement for people with FinTech skills. And so FinTech is that intersection really of computer technology, some of the more traditional programming database type things, but also the new computing, big data, data science, machine learning, those kinds of skills. And actually it's those more advanced things like machine learning, which are really feeding into a new way in which companies, particularly in the finance sector, that's what we're interested in here, are doing business. You've probably come across these new cryptocurrencies, things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and so on. And all of these changes to the way in which money is being used, and people are maybe given the access to borrowing money that they couldn't before, or spending money in different ways, spending money on their mobile phones in ways that they couldn't before. This is all driven by technology. And so this is where FinTech is coming from, the idea that new technologies are allowing what used to be a very traditional, quite controlled by a small number of big banks. Finance used to be very difficult to start your own bank. But nowadays that's starting to change. You don't actually have to start a bank. You can start a FinTech startup company. You can write a clever app. It can interact with banks' systems and so on. And actually you can act like a bank, even though actually just a small technology startup company. And so that's very interesting. A lot of people are getting excited about shaking up the finance industry, and it's such a huge and lucrative industry. There's an awful lot of money to be made there. And so that's what's really driven the design of the course, that and the fact that Edinburgh in particular, but Scotland more in general, has set itself the target of being one of the top 5 FinTech hubs in the world. So it's quite a big goal that they've set themselves. But they're really doing very well. There's a lot of FinTech companies starting up in Edinburgh. Edinburgh is already an international centre for finance, so it's not like we're starting from nothing. And we're seeing a lot of very interesting new companies, a lot of interesting activity going on in Stirling, so in Scotland in general. And so studying FinTech here is going to be studying it in the heart of where a lot of it's happening. So what are we doing here at Stirling? Well, when we put the course together, we took a particular story, and the story was that one of the new routes into finance that the whole financial technology sector is enabling is that of new startup companies. We're seeing lots of small agile companies with different technologies starting up and challenging the big banks, these new disruptive technologies. And if you're going to be involved with that, there are a set of skills that you'll need. You'll need some technical skills, obviously, and I'm in the computer science department, and so that's where you will be to learn about the types of computer technology that are going to be important in FinTech. So that's things like open banking, things like machine learning and data analytics and so on. You'll be learning those in the computer science department. But it's also important to have entrepreneurial skills. It's also important to know how to talk to your investors, how to talk to other people that are required to get a company off the ground like this. And so you'll be over in the management school for courses on things like entrepreneurial skills, things like change management and so on, which are very important if you're going to be involved with a disruptive technology like this. Similarly, it's going to be useful to understand something about finance and something about banking. So you'll have some of your lectures over in our department for finance and banking, and there you'll get the lectures on those subjects. So it really is a cross-disciplinary degree. It's not just coming to the computer science department, learning some programming and hoping that you might be able to apply it in finance. We've really put together exactly the set of skills that we believe you'll need to go out and work in, or even perhaps start your own FinTech startup. And that's where the money is at the moment. That's where the jobs are. I think a few of you probably will end up finding similar jobs in the existing big banks. Obviously, all of the big banks and the financial institutions are not ignoring FinTech. They see it as a challenge. Sometimes they see it as a threat. Some of them see it as an opportunity. So all of the banks are building their own FinTech teams as well. So you may find that that's where your job ends up as well. Right, so I'll talk very quickly about what we teach here. So the module, the program, the course is a full year, September to September, and it's split into 3 semesters. 2 of them are taught semesters, so you come to lectures, you sit in computer labs, you have tutorial groups and so on, and this is where the experts at the university try and get across as much of our knowledge as possible in the space of 2 semesters. And then in the final semester over the summer, you do a dissertation, which I'll talk about in a minute. So semester 1, so you turn up in September and you study between September and Christmas some compulsory modules. There's a module on blockchain technology, one on cybersecurity, and one on contemporary issues in banking. The database module isn't there at the moment, and it's been replaced by a module on corporate finance. But apart from that small change, everything else is exactly as you see it there. Then you have a little break over Christmas, enjoy some turkey, and then come back for semester 2, where there are 2 compulsory modules. The first one is called Data Analytics. That's about machine learning, data mining, artificial intelligence. And these are really some of the key technologies that are making a big impact in the FinTech sector at the moment. And the other compulsory module is around financial apps and open banking. And there you'll learn about developing new apps that are specifically about talking to the new APIs that the banks by law are required to develop and release. Then there's quite a few elective modules, and you can choose 20 credits from among the list there. And really, it depends on your background, which ones you take here. You might want to learn about innovation and entrepreneurship. You might want to learn a bit more about banking, professionalism, regulation, and so on. You might want to learn more about investment. And so you can choose from those. And partly that will depend on where you want your career to go. Partly it will depend on what you've already studied before you come to Stirling. Right, so that's 2 semesters worth of taught material. And that's followed over the summer for 3 months with this dissertation project. And this is your opportunity to pick one subject that interests you and go into it in some detail. You have a free choice as long as it's something to do with technology and finance. We will provide some ideas for you as well if you can't think of a project for yourself, and we will also do our very best to find you real projects with real companies, so with startups or with banks and so on. We'll try and get you projects that are dealing with real world organizations, but of course, you know, we can't guarantee that for every student, but we do quite well with it. On our other courses, we're reasonably successful in finding projects with companies. So you pick a subject, then you spend the summer, you have a supervisor at the university who will help you through the process, but really it's mostly your own work. You'll do some in-depth research, maybe you'll build an app if that's what you're interested in, maybe you'll do some data analytics, maybe you'll use some machine learning on some bank data or something. You can really choose. Maybe you'll develop a new investment strategy for Bitcoin. It's really up to you what you choose, as I said, as long as it's something to do with finance and technology. And this really is going to be the key part of your showcase when you start applying for jobs. Your dissertation project is probably what you will talk about most in job interviews. If you do it with a company, then it's often a good opportunity as a way into that company. We find a lot of companies will come to us with a project which is really a 3-month job interview. You do well in the project, we'll offer you a job. And as I said, there's quite a skill shortage in this field at the moment. So there's no shortage of companies who are looking for qualified students. Okay, so I'll just tell you a couple more things about the course, and then I'll open up to questions from you. So why should you do the course at Stirling? Well, really the purpose of the course and what we had in mind was that it's to equip people to go into a job, to go into work. If you're thinking you'd like to learn about the PhD, you might not find that it's for you. It's really about getting you a job. If you've seen what's happening in FinTech and you've thought, this is a career that really interests me, that's how we've designed the course. We've put it together to try and get you a job. And that process involved us talking to banks, to startup companies, to recruitment agencies who hire people into positions. And we basically said to them, what's the dream CV? If I could bring you a set of students, what should they know if you were going to give them a job? And we took the answers to those questions, and that's how we built the course. So we're pretty confident that the set of skills you will come out with are really closely matched to the set of skills that you will see in job adverts when you start to apply. And really that's the first step of getting yourself a job interview, is having all the right words on your CV. So that's really what we're trying to do for you. So what kind of a job might you end up with? You've done the course, you've done very well, you've got yourself a master's qualification. So, well, you won't be surprised to learn really that there's a specific set of jobs. If you've studied FinTech, then you're likely either to be looking at a job in one of the traditional finance institutions, maybe in banking or insurance or investment. As I said, they're all interested in the new technologies. There are all of the emerging high-tech sectors that you could work in, things like blockchain, cryptocurrencies, mobile currencies, all of these things which are really changing the way we use money. You might fancy starting your own company. I did that before I came to the university, started a software company, raised investment. It's a pretty exciting thing to do, to be honest. And part of the design that went into this course was based on my experiences of that, thinking about what would I have liked to have known when I was running that startup company. And a lot of that is what's gone into this course. So you might find that you're the entrepreneur of tomorrow. So that's really all I wanted to say to you. And now what I'm going to do is give you the opportunity to type some questions. I'm going to try and answer them in some kind of sensible order. Excuse me if you've typed one and it doesn't seem to get answered for a minute. I will work through them And what I'll do is I'll read each one out so that everybody else knows which one I'm answering, and then I'll provide an answer. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for coming along to this webinar, and feel free to type some questions now. Thank you. Hello, right, so I can see there are some questions coming in now. So actually the first two of them are almost the same question. So one says, is the course suitable for people with a background in change management in finance, but no technical knowledge? And the other says, is it suitable for people with engineering backgrounds? So yes, the requirements for the course are a background in either something related to finance or something numerate. So that might be computing, it might be engineering, even physics. As long as you've done either something financial or something, let's say mathematical, it's not really mathematical, computer science, physics, engineering, all of those things, you will have come across enough numerate problems to be able to do the course. And really, as you steer your way through the course, you can decide how much technology is involved. You could take the programming option if you wanted to. It's Python scripting, by the way. There's another question here that says, what's the programming language we use? So actually, there are two. The data manipulation is done in Python, so that's for the machine learning. And the app development is done on Android devices, so that's with Java. And so you'd be learning some Java development. We're not talking about full-on software engineering here. We're just talking about understanding the process of developing a mobile app. But because it's got this focus on open banking, a lot of it will really be around what does the open banking framework offer, rather than being an in-depth Java programming course. So I think probably depending on what choices you make, you will come out more or less technically qualified, depending on what you choose. You might come out knowing an awful lot more about finance and business, and just with a kind of overview of where the technology is going and what's possible. And that's fine for a lot of roles that you might go into. Well, there don't seem to be any more questions just at the moment. We'll stick around for the next 5 minutes in case you think of something. So if you've got something to ask, you can still type. If you're happy with everything, then that's all we intended to say. You might be curious to see if anybody else asks a question. But really just remains for me to thank you again and say that I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you find it interesting. And I'm looking forward to meeting at least some of you, I hope, in September here in Stirling. Thanks very much. Hello, so somebody's asked, can they take more than the minimum required courses? You can. You won't get credits for them. You'll end up with enough credits to get a master's degree, but you are quite welcome to sit in and take part in any of the other modules that you want, not just the ones I listed here. I mean, you might see something else at the university that interests you. All you need to do is ask the permission of the person giving the lecture. Almost always they will say yes, as long as there's somebody for you to sit, and you can listen in on all kinds of things. Yes, if you have an accountancy background, then you are eligible to apply. So somebody's asked for advice on which electives to choose. So that's kind of tricky without sitting and having a chat. And you don't need to choose until you're here. In fact, you could go to more than you needed for the first week or so and choose once you've seen the introductory lecture for each course, for example. But general advice is, well, pick things that you don't already know. If you've got an accountancy background already, don't study the finance course. If you already know how to program, don't study the programming and so on. Perhaps you've got an idea of the career path that you'd like, so choose things that are compatible with that. But the short answer is don't worry about that at the moment. You can choose when you're here, and you can come and have a chat with me, and I'll be quite happy to go over in detail all of the possibilities with you. Yes, so somebody's asking, is the course available online or is it campus-based? At the moment, it's just based on campus. We don't have an online version of it, I'm afraid. So there's a question from somebody who says they're already working in banking and they already have a degree in IT, but they want to work in banking technology. Is this the course for them? It might be. I mean, only you'll probably, if you look through the list of modules and you think, well, how many of those things do I already know? It sounds like if you know about banking and you know about a decent amount of IT, you might find perhaps that it doesn't add really what you need. It might be that having a master's degree in FinTech is eye-catching enough that it's the thing that gets you into the job interviews. Or you might feel that perhaps the gaps in your skills could be filled in a different way. And really only you can work that out. Yeah, sorry, that probably didn't help you an awful lot, but it was an honest answer. Well, I think that seems to be the last of the questions. So thank you very much again. Yes, we'll be wrapping up the webinar just now. So thank you and goodbye.